Welcome to Climate Papa. This is a show about climate change, technology, and parenthood. Today, my Papa Ben is going to talk to my friend Asa.
Hello there. Welcome to Climate Papa. I'm Ben Idelson. I'm based in Seattle, and I invest in product-led climate companies. And I'm a papa to two kids, a 5-year-old girl and a 2-year-old boy. And I am extremely excited today to have a good friend of mine, is Asa. Asa, do you want to say hi?
Hi, my name's Asa.
How old are you, Asa?
I am 7 years old.
What would you like people to know about you before we dive in?
I am also very interested in climate change and want to help it.
What else besides climate change? What are you interested in?
Birds. I'm interested in birds.
Yeah? Like just all the kinds of birds out there?
Yeah.
Yeah? What was your highlight of the last week?
Highlight of the last week.
Did you go anywhere special?
Oh, yeah, I did. I went to Camp Casey and I explored Camp Casey Fort Park. Casey Park.
And going camping, did you notice anything interesting?
I noticed 2 deers, one big adult deer and one fawn. A fawn's a name for small deer.
Mm-hmm. The camping trip sounds really fun. I want to talk about how we ended up having this conversation. Like, why are we talking today?
Because I wanted to donate some of my money to
Should I pull up the text conversation I got from your mom? Last week I got a text from your mom that said, "Hi Ben, this is Asa. Do you know a few organizations that are doing stuff to help with climate change? I'm going to donate money from my give jar from my allowance," and then some really good emojis, including the earth and a sunset. Why did you send me that message?
Because I wanted to help organizations that were helping climate change.
Yeah.
The organization I donated to was Rewiring America that helps make electric stuff instead of gasoline.
I've now known you for 4 years, I think, 3 or 4 years. And I feel like for maybe the last 2 years, every time we meet up, we often talk about climate change, or you're like listening to podcasts. Like, what first got you interested in it?
I think it was when Claire came. She's been telling me all about nature. I mean, the land, and getting me so involved in it.
That got you really interested in it?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, well, let's get into what questions do you have?
What can kids do to help climate change?
It's a really good question. I think that kids are in a really interesting position. On one hand, I think that they are the most affected by climate change, right?
What do you mean by affected by climate change?
I mean that they will experience kind of the impacts of climate change the longest.
Because they'll grow up to have it.
That's right. So do you already think a little bit about the people that might come after you?
I'll stumble upon this. When you plant a garden, when you plant like a big old tree that grows really long, you're not planting it for yourself. You're planting it for your kids and
That's
everyone
right.
to come, and all the generations to come. And even if you can't see, even if you can't feel or see who's yet to come, you're still doing something for them.
Yeah, going back to what kids can do, I think that, as we were just saying, kids are most likely to be impacted for the longest period of time because you're going to be on this earth. Your generation is going to be here longer than my generation. Generally, kids don't have a lot of power. Are you allowed to vote yet?
No.
How much longer until you can vote?
Till you're like 12 or 18.
Yeah.
Don't know the right.
18 for the big elections, maybe 12 for some of my school elections. So when you're 18, you can vote. Kids don't have as much financial resources.
Yeah.
And so kids sometimes feel
They can't make a difference.
They feel like they can't make a difference.
And so they don't.
And so they don't. But do you think that's true?
No.
What do you think they can do?
They can ask to take a bike or walk instead of taking a car. They can also ask to change to solar power or water power. For the electricity they use. They can make a big difference.
Do you know what they can also do? That's
What?
Probably something to think more about. I think they can change what their parents think. I think they can change what their grandparents think. I think kids can change what their aunts and uncles think.
Yeah.
So I think that we think that kids can't make a big difference because they can't directly vote, or they don't maybe directly have a lot of financial resources, but they have a lot of deep relationship resources. So think about all, like in your life, think about all the people that care about you.
Yeah, a lot of people care about me.
Yeah, so you can influence what they think about climate change.
Yeah.
And then you can influence the things that they do. You can think about how you get them to upgrade their houses, or how you get them to change their transportation, or how you get them to work on these problems. And so you donated some money to Rewiring America, which is amazing. You're probably one of the only 7-year-olds that have ever donated money to Rewiring America. And they're going to really appreciate and use that money to help change the laws to be better and help advocate for use of funds for better electrification. But you also, next time other people are talking about donating, you can say, hey, have you heard of Rewiring America? And you can tell more people about it, right?
Yeah, I've never actually thought about that.
I think that's actually one of the biggest things kids can do. If you think about, and you can
donate money
and get other people, get their parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles to get involved.
I've never thought about that before.
Yeah. And you have a lot of other friends who are kids.
Yeah.
And all of those
I
kids.
can tell them about them. And then I can ask them to tell all of their relationships with them.
And so when you think of all of that and all of the power there, does that feel significant?
Yeah, it does.
And then we're making this podcast. Maybe some people will listen to that.
Yeah.
And then what?
And then they could get super involved.
Yeah.
And ask their parents to make a difference, and ask their grandparents to make a difference, and ask their aunts to make a difference.
Yeah, so I think we should do more of this.
Yeah.
Great. Well, what are your other big questions?
Why is it important to change climate change? Why's climate change a big deal?
Yeah.
And to start off with this, I think we need to talk about the start of climate change, how climate change all started.
Okay. So you want me to just explain climate change for a minute?
I can help.
Okay. Yeah. Why don't you help me a little bit?
So climate change started when people were starting to making cars and putting a lot of fossil fuels into the air. The earth usually has a blanket or a metaphorical blanket that...
What do we call the metaphorical blanket?
The atmosphere. And it's usually nice.
What's nice about it?
Oh, yeah. It's usually nice and snug. But as we've been digging up more and more of these fossil fuels,
What's happening to the blanket?
The blanket has been getting thicker and thicker, and the earth's been getting hotter and hotter. And places that are getting hotter and drier will get more droughts and floods. And places will start drying up, like Seattle will start drying up.
Yeah.
And Arizona will start getting big floods.
Why do we keep doing it then? Like, why do we keep digging up fossil fuels?
Because it helps our life.
Yeah.
It helps...
kind of everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it helps us drive around.
It helps
most
us
cars.
Fly around.
Helps us fly. If we fly, it helps us move our food here. Like a lot of the food we eat, is it grown in Seattle?
No.
So it has to be transported in. Most of it is grown with fertilizer. And turns out making fertilizer takes a lot of fossil fuels.
And also growing a garden takes a lot of stuff from the earth. Not just fossil fuels, stuff from the earth.
Like nutrition from the
Yeah.
earth. Well, growing a garden is interesting because it kind of depends how you grow the garden. Right?
But there's another way to do it. So say you want to plant a garden in somewhere with a lot of grass. You would put a piece of cardboard down and the grass would die. Mm-hmm. And the cardboard they would eat up the cardboard for a little bit of nutrition. And then they would grow.
Amazing. So there are different ways we could start to garden and farm that are better.
The first way is the one most people do it, and it isn't very good. It isn't very good for the earth, because it turns over the soil making.
And so when you turn over the soil, the carbon that's in the soil gets released. That's right. And this happened actually a long time ago in the U.S. The soil got really dried out, and then there was dust storms, and then you couldn't grow food there for a long time. So it can be a big issue if you have
Yeah,
land.
I read about that on Epic. I read about...
You read about the Dust Bowls?
Yeah, the Dust Bowl.
Yeah. We went down farming, which was a fun topic. It's not like we're digging up fossil fuel because we are trying to cause climate change, right? We're digging it up. Why are we digging it up? To drive, to get food, to build our buildings, live our life.
Yeah.
It's our lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that's like a really hard thing to unwind. If that's what's powering everything we eat and how we get around and how we build our buildings and how we travel, it feels like, how are we ever going to change that? I think it is unique that a 7-year-old has dove into all these deep topics. Does it feel interesting to you to think about and talk about? Does it feel like overwhelming to how does it make you feel to think about this?
Interesting.
Yeah? What about it's so interesting?
Learning about all the things the Native Americans did and how their ways of living was that don't use fossil fuels and how they prayed to the earth to give thanks. I actually got a book about it from the library.
Yeah. And so you think there's things that we can learn from Indigenous communities about how to treat the earth differently?
When I was at Camp Casey, was talking about how they would give thanks to salmon. They would catch the salmon. They would give the salmon to their elders. And then they would leave the spines.
As like a gift to the earth?
Yeah.
Wow. And that's not how we treat our food now, right?
No, we eat the whole thing and we don't give anything back.
We don't think about giving thanks to the earth. This is a big thing to think about. We sometimes think we're so used to a certain way of living that it's impossible to think about what if we didn't drive the same way or what if we didn't travel the same way. But the way that we live is very new. And even our grandparents lived a different way. And their parents lived a different way. And their parents lived a different way. So the reality, I think, is that every generation does change the way we live, right? Like computers are pretty new. The internet's very new, right?
My mom didn't have them when they were growing up.
Yeah, she didn't have an iPhone when she was growing up. And so the idea that we can't change is not true. We know we can change things and build new things and upgrade and add solar and move to new cars that we need and things like that, right?
Yeah. I also want to talk about a few easy ways to make power that is better for the earth.
Okay.
The solution is, here's how you make water energy that kids can make. So, you know the chains on the bikes?
Yeah.
You take the chain off and you take the wheel off of a bike.
Uh-huh.
You put cups on the wheel
Uh-huh.
and you put it in a rock that has water streaming through it. You put the chain to the wheel of the generator and then you use the plug to plug it into light.
That's right.
And then you can also make wind energy. You use another one of those chains. You use the pole. You put the wheel on top, and you put cords on top or something to catch the wind. And then you do the same thing. You use the chain, and then you attach it to the generator, and then you plug it in with the plug holes, and then
that's right.
That's also another way to make.
You just described hydropower, and you did wind power.
Yeah.
And you know what? We're pretty lucky in Seattle. Most of our power comes, do you know where it comes from? Mostly hydropower. It's mostly exactly what you described.
What?
Most of the U.S., that's not the case. But in Seattle, most of our power from Seattle City Light comes from hydropower.
I never knew that.
Yeah, so that's what's happening. They have these big hydroelectric dams where they let some of the water through that spins a turbine.
They have them in
That's exactly what you said. It's spinning.
It's giant.
It works just like you said with a cup and the chain. Well, I think there's one last thing I wanted to talk about, which is I think a lot of the people listening to this will probably be more adults, right?
And teenagers.
Yeah. Maybe even some like older adults.
Yeah.
So we just talked earlier about probably one of the biggest things kids can do is to influence the ideas and the voting and effort from adults. And so what would you like to say to adults that might be listening around what your suggestions are for them?
Well, my suggestions are for you guys, check what your power is, and if it's generated by fossil fuel, maybe you can change that.
Uh-huh.
And also, you can help by using no cars, but biking and walking.
More biking and walking?
Yeah.
I think we gave people some really good suggestions.
Yeah.
Last question, is there anything you've been reading or listening to or watching that you'd recommend that people look at? It doesn't have to be about climate change. It could be about birds. It could be just anything you love.
There's a few. Magic School Bus.
Magic School Bus is great.
Magic School Bus Rides Again. And I also just watched a new documentary called Dancing with the Birds.
Dancing with the Birds.
And it's about birds of paradise, the strange ways of dancing.
The strange ways that birds of paradise dance.
Yes.
Where can people find Dancing with the Birds?
On Netflix.
On Netflix, okay.
I also read a good book, Giving Thanks, a Native American Good Morning Story.
Giving Thanks, a Native American Good Morning Story.
And it's a Reading Rainbow book.
A Reading Rainbow book. So it's a good book to read with your kids. Or for your kids to read with you.
And it's a very easy book if your kids are like 7 or 6 and they're good readers. I bet they could read it. I read it on my own.
Okay.
It's a very lovely story.
Lovely story. All right. Well, I would say this was, speaking of lovely story, this was a lovely conversation, Isa.
Yes, I do agree.
I hope we do this regularly because I think there's a lot to talk with you about and to figure out with you.
I think, yeah.
Thank you for caring and for having the conversation with me. That's episode 4 of Climate Papa. I hope to have a lot more conversations with kids about how they are thinking about climate change and how they hope to engage on the problem. And I'm going to try and follow Asa's lead here and give a donation to Rewiring America to add support to their work. Thanks for inspiring me, Asa. Also, to tease a bit, the next episode pairs particularly well with this one. We're going to have a follow-on conversation with Asa's mom, Julia, all about the intersection of climate change and mental health. If you're enjoying this, please share it with others. Follow us and review us in whatever app you're listening. With that, I know you're all ready for the phenomenal Vulcan bump to take us out. Let's do it again.
On we go like...